Hey guys, welcome to the Community Difference Plano. We've got a very special show today. When we started these shows, we wanted to bring attention to some of the great stories and people of our community of Plano through schools and businesses and nonprofits. And man, that's still totally our goal. But we do want to bring some things to your attention. As you may have known in the news, there's been this big effort throughout school districts across the country and just this move to hypersexualize children. And unfortunately, it's kind of reared its head in Plano. And so we're going to talk about that today and what we can do about it, just making you guys aware of it. We'll talk to City Councilman Shelby Williams about what the city is doing to make sure that kind of stuff does not happen again and what their response is. We're also going to have one of our amazing sponsors on the show on the back end, Josh Small with Libertarian. This, a week from this coming Tuesday is the election day. So what's on your ballot? What is there to vote on? Some important propositions for Plano, but also from the state, local, and national level. So big show today. Stick around for all that next on Community Difference.
Tune in to watch our communities grow. See how our citizens, local governments, churches, small businesses, schools, and our local sports teams are coming together and partnering to make the difference. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Community Difference, Plano, Texas, with your host, Nathan Smith, and powered by the Difference live stream radio and podcast. So if you love your community and you love supporting the folks and businesses that make your community so special, then we invite you to like, follow, and subscribe to our pages, and then tune into each show to experience the Community Difference.
Good afternoon and welcome to a very special edition of the Community Difference Plano. I am your host, Nathan Smith. It is great to be here with you as always. We are excited to experience the great city of Plano and be able to bring important things to your purview each and every week. So we're excited. We have a really good show, but it's a little bit different than today. A very important show. And we don't talk a lot of politics in the sense of the word. With the, in fact, Lynn Wilson, if you want to put in here, Lynn, for a second, when you started the difference, you kind of saw the landscape of all the negativity and just divisiveness that exists in media today. And some of it, you got to talk about, but we really wanted to kind of steer clear of that and bring the good, like the exciting stories, the things that are happening in the community that most people don't know about. And but we just can't, we can't steer away from certain things that we want to talk about today. So, Lennon, I'm excited to talk to Shelby about this, but we're going to hold on just a second. We want to kind of give you a couple of things that we always share. First of all, and how's your weekend? I know you're a little sleep deprived today, but you're kind of over it.
My week's going good. Was really excited to get this show going. After you brought my attention to this last week, I started looking to it as well. And like you said, Nathan, the Community Difference shows are about bringing the positive things that are happening in our community. And you made a good point before. I'm not gonna give away what the show's going to be about today, but people have the freedom to do what they want to do. There's a time and a place, I guess you could say. But it's kind of what we're learning about what happened in Plano. We're just putting it out there for debate. Was it the right time? Was it the right place? What are people's thoughts within the community? Nationally, I guess what concerned me was, and we've had some clarity on what happened and how it was marketed. But nationally, there is a trend to push this certain agenda. And I'm really interested to see what the good citizens of Plano have to say about this, because I think a lot of them probably don't even know that it happened. I'm wondering if it's going to happen again, where that goes in conjunction with the national trend of what's happening. And I think that the Plano citizens need to be informed. If they're cool with it, hey, good for them. I'm not sure that everybody will be.
And before we dive in, as always, want to give you guys an update on the weather, what's going on this week. We'll jump into that real quickly. So, hey, it is officially here. Fall is here, I hope. But you know how Texas is, right? We could get like a 90-degree day, like randomly. But it doesn't look like that for the next 10 days. The 5th there, Saturday the 5th, is my anniversary. We're going to tell my wife. So it looks like great weather. Pretty excited about that. But man, hopefully you guys stayed dry yesterday. It was, I'm doing this challenge with a guy that I work with, and you do 2 45-minute workouts a day. And it's called 75 hour. I'm only doing it for 7 days. I'm starting small. But my workout, yeah, I'm like, just accomplish one thing first, and then you can expand it if you need to. My workout last night was literally a 45-minute walking through the neighborhood, which when I started was just a little bit of drizzle. By the time I got done, I was in a deluge. Like my feet were soaked, and I was like, well, hey, at least it's raining, and at least I got a workout in. So, but yeah, exciting things. Great time to be outside. Great time to visit the many parks and hiking trails and go on a picnic with your family. All kinds of fun things, opportunities there for you as a great citizen of Plano. We're going to dive right in. And before we bring on Shelby Williams, one of our good friends, been on the show a number of times, just an all-around great guy that really has a passion for people, a passion for the community, and we wanted him to weigh in on this. We want to just express, in case you didn't hear, what happened. And you may have seen this, if you watch national news or maybe, I don't know what your news source is, and it could depend on, what side of the aisle you're on. Maybe this is a big deal, maybe it's not, but just want to bring it to people's attention. Because I believe, like Lyndon said, that this is a big deal, and it would upset or has upset or could upset a lot of people, but also could be a trend going in the complete wrong direction. And so I believe it was about a week ago, Sarah Gonzalez, she works for the Blaze. She broke a story. There's a restaurant in Legacy area that had a drag show, right? Which is okay, great, drag show, not your thing, probably not my thing for sure. But the problem is they had children there, okay? And the event itself was initially thought to have been marketed as family friendly. There's kind of been some back and forth on that. One side says we're working to get a little more clarity on that. But there was like a disclaimer at the bottom. But the issue is that really, in my opinion, that shouldn't be up for debate, right? Like, you shouldn't have kids at a drag show. And if you've watched the news, nationally, you see this like out of nowhere. I don't know, maybe this was happening a lot and nobody knew about it, but it goes with the trend of this kind of hypersexualization of children and teaching them things or encouraging them to do things or make decisions about themselves, about their bodies, about just things that you shouldn't even be thinking about as a 4 or 5-year-old or even a teenager for that matter. And so this drag show happened. It was very, wasn't just the people in the show. It was the music, the vulgarity, what they were talking about, very anatomically explicit stuff. We'll actually show you a tweet that Sarah Gonzalez broke here in just a moment. But you guys probably saw this. Just to give you some details and kind of the response from the city and what has come out of from other citizens, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Shelby Williams, City Councilman for Plano. Shelby, how are you doing this morning, or this afternoon, rather?
Yep, I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me back.
So give us the details, if you will. When you first heard about this incident, make sure we're kind of reporting it correctly, and then just kind of where it evolved and what you and your office were doing as far as, well, let's start there. How did it break? What are the details? And then how did you kind of get involved in the information?
Well, to set the stage, there was actually a prelude to this. So what we're going to talk about here is principally what happened at a Plano restaurant about a week and a couple days ago. And it was went viral nationally by somebody who took video at the event. So it was a drag event at which children were present, or at least a child was present, and it looked like about a 5 or 6-year-old girl. But 2 weeks prior to that, there was a Pride Festival in Plano where there was a drag performance, and not with the kind of explicit music and lyrics at this one, but there were other things. Like there was a table there with, I guess they were magnets, maybe buttons or stickers or something, with really, really explicit, vulgar content on them. And it's not like just using foul language. It was overtly 100% vulgar sexuality. So I'm not going to repeat any of it, but just as graphic as you can, or as explicit, I guess you should say, it was text-based, as explicit as you can imagine, that was it. So in a sexual context. There was a van there advertising free STD checks. So the whole thing, the Pride Fest, I mean, the whole atmosphere was overtly sexualized. So as we talk about this, it's important to draw the distinction between sexy and sexualized or sexual, because even the Dallas Morning News wrote about this incident about a week ago where the child was at. And by the way, there were children at the Pride Fest in Plano, and that was on city property as well. But the Dallas Morning News is saying, well, some say that it's no different than children going into a Hooters. Well, if you contend that, then you have no idea what the difference is between sexy and sexual. So anyway, that sets the stage, this Pride Fest that had overtly sexual content at it with children on city property. Now, there was fallout from that, partly because it was on city property, partly because it was in view of the public, and partly because there were children present. But then 2 weeks later, we had this incident that went viral. That was the first I heard of it, was the video. Somebody, my phone blew up when it hit Twitter. People sending it to me.
So you found out about it, and then, and here's the thing, and it's a tricky thing, because, like I was telling you this before the show, like, people, if you're an ardent supporter of the Constitution, like you are, and I am, and Lyndon, and so many people we know about, or are friends with, I should say, part of freedom of speech and expression is allowing things that you disagree with. You have to support the existence of other views, other activities, other things you disagree with. However, with pretty much every right, there is a limit to where it begins to infringe on other people's rights.
That's right.
And that's where the issue is. You can't express your rights to the point where it infringes on someone else's.
That's
and
right.
Of course, infringing is really probably lost a bit of its the magnitude of that word to mean like, well, if I don't like it, that's infringing. Well, that's not when you try to, and that's really the question here, I guess, is what it comes down to is, is this an issue where you're putting someone in a place where they aren't mature enough to understand what's happening, and it's not just this one scenario. It hits closer to home because it's our city. But like I said, if you've been following the news, this is, curriculum in schools and more drag.
Well, they're taking school kids on field trips to see these things, and that's not what we're saying happened in Plano. We're not saying that happened in Plano. I guess my biggest concern is
this has nothing to do with the school district.
No, it does. It does. Like you said, Nathan. People have the right and the freedom to do what they want to do. My concern is what's happening nationwide. And is that starting to creep into Plano? And our public venues a place to have those, especially like what Councilman said, when it becomes so sexualized? I mean, yes, if I were in that restaurant, could I get up and walk out? Absolutely, I could. But where's the line? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Where's the line of how we can all respect each other's freedoms, but not also create an environment that is uncomfortable for a lot of people?
Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, and as you noted, Nathan, I am an ardent defender of the Constitution and the First Amendment, but part and parcel to that is understanding what the First Amendment says and means and what it doesn't say and mean. And the whole debate about the First Amendment at the Constitutional Convention and the First Amendment wasn't part of the Constitutional Convention, but they discussed these freedoms. And then in the ratification conventions, it was discussed very explicitly. Part of the whole deal for ratifying the Constitution was the states, many of the states demanded a Bill of Rights be added later, which included the First Amendment. And that would meant the expression of ideas, especially unpopular political ideas. It did not include passing out sex toys in front of 5-year-olds, which is what happened at this event at Ebb and Flow in Plano. That's the restaurant name, Ebb and Flow. So they were actually giving out legit sex toys, insertable sex toys, not to get too graphic, but at this event with children present. And that's something that is just not protected under the First Amendment. There's a very long history, never mind discussion at the ratification conventions for the Constitution, and discussion in the history of the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights itself. There's a very long history of Supreme Court jurisprudence that says there are definable limits on the First Amendment. Probably the most famous one is you can't yell, fire in a crowded theater. So protecting children, we have a lot of laws that protect children because you hit the nail on the head. Their minds are not well developed enough to really think through these things. And they are serious things at a rational, responsible level. And that is why we protect them. That's why we don't allow children into strip joints, for instance. We don't allow children into strip clubs. So the framing about, well, this is no different than allowing your child in a Hooters or an R-rated movie, that's the wrong framing entirely, because the right framing is you don't allow children in a sex toy shop or a strip club, because that's the level this is at. That's how hypersexualized these things are. And if you can show the image that was posted with the video that went viral, there was a cut of, or just typed out with some asterisks, the lyrics that were being said in front of this child.
Let's do that. Let's do that on the back side of the commercial
Sure.
here. We're going to go to commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Guys, stick around the community difference.
The difference is made possible by the following small businesses.
Are you in the market for a new or used car or truck? Then contact Derek Wallets at Sam Pack's 5-Star Ford in Carrollton, Texas today. With Derek's 20-plus years of experience in automobile sales consulting and Sam Pack's 42 years of exceptional service in the DFW community, you will quickly understand what it means to experience the Sam Pack difference. So give Derek and Sam Pack 5-Star Ford a call today at 972-299-0028 or email him at dwallets@sampack.com.
WeatherTech General Contracting. We make your home renovation dreams a reality.
Metroplex Delivery is DFW's premier restaurant delivery service. Metroplex Delivery brings premium restaurant food right to your door. Metroplex Delivery offers uncompromising white glove treatment. Launching in McKinney and Allen. Give Metroplex Delivery a call at 469-505-0844 or online at www.metroplex.delivery. And by
Alan Lester, branch manager and team lead for the One Group, a branch of Town Square Mortgage. With over 22 years in the mortgage lending industry, Allen and Town Square Mortgage have many loan program options available from conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, and many investor and self-employed programs. So if you're looking for the best in the business, give Allen a call at 214-681-0234.
If you would like to know how you and your business can sponsor this show or others like it, please contact us at info@thedifferenceradio.com. And now back to the show.
All righty, welcome back. Right before the show, and one thing before we show that graphic, I like how you broke down kind of the meaning of the First Amendment, the Constitution, et cetera. And I think that's very important in this instance because, and I really do mean this. Like, I am in favor. Like, if somebody was trying to infringe on someone's rights, that I vehemently disagree with what they were doing, but it was protected, I would fight for that. Now, I may have a conversation with them outside of that and, explain my position and why I didn't like it, but I would fight for that because if in order to protect your rights, you've got to protect other people's rights that you don't agree with. However, this is a case of that extending way beyond, and it's not a one-time thing. Like we've seen, this is a pattern that has been taking place really for the past 4, 5, 6, maybe even years, fully creeping into schools and just the desensitizing of sex and putting it in a way that's not, healthy necessarily. Of course, again, that's totally up for debate what's healthy and what's not. But you nobody can decide what that is for another child. That's the parent's job. But also, there's just some societal conditions, like uh, there is precedent set in societal morale, right? And that's a big issue. Is that you can't stand on any moral principle because morality, in a sense, has become objective or excuse me, subjective and non-existent, basically. So that makes the argument. That's true, very true.
Nathan, I'm going to pop this up. I pulled over some more of the Tucker Carlson show, which I hope YouTube doesn't get too pissed off at us for. We're not playing the video; we're just showing. So I wanted to pull that up because that's kind of what Councilman was talking about, where they had to. These are the lyrics being lip synced, played. We're not allowed to play the video, but so if
and I also uploaded the whole tweet that Sarah Gonzalez put out there. It's in the
all right,
picture there, and we won't leave it up long. It's very explicit, but just so you know, like this is the issue. It's not that there's a drag show. There's a drag show with kids there that are then talking about stuff like this. Do you see it, Lyndon? There it is. Yeah. And I mean, you know, it's pretty. The asterisks don't really help much. It's pretty aware of what's going on here. So, and right behind the play button, you can't see it real well, is at least one child, if not more. So you can take it down now, Lyndon. We won't leave it up very long. But it's just it's a very interesting. It's an interesting issue because I could just see that. I mean, I already know the debate on both sides. Like, they have the right to be there. They have, if parents bring their kids, etc. But I think that's where we have 8 minutes before our next break, and I'd love to. We're going to speak with Josh Small on the
real quick before Josh comes in. Here's a point that I think I'd like to make. If you want to do this in a public restaurant, again, parents have the right to pick their children up and take them out of there and never go back to that restaurant again. I think the message that people in Plano need to understand is, again, nationally, this type of entertainment is being introduced to schools and school-age children. Deliberately. You need to understand what goes on at those shows so that if and when it ever starts to come to your neighborhood, you understand what your child's being subjected to.
And you watch the show, or you watch like the clips they'll show nationally, other parts of the country, and everybody's laughing and having fun, supposedly. And it's like, good old clean fun. But then it's not at all. Like, it's not. But that's the problem when you don't take sexuality seriously, which is basically, when you allow anything that you want to be true, you've rendered useless, essentially, one of the great gifts from God and one of the great gifts that God has bestowed upon humanity, which is sexuality, sex in general, and you've bastardized it in a way that's destructive. And that's really, and again, I know people listening may not agree with that, but that's time and time again, see history proving that to be the case. Yes, sexual depravity is what leads right before a collapse of civilization.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be misled by the smiles and the laughter captured at such things, because people at cocaine-fueled sex parties are having a good time too. Doesn't make it right.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean there's no consequences. Mentally.
That's why the children need to be protected, because they can't weigh those consequences for themselves with a responsible adult mind.
Sure. Let's bring in Josh Small. We're going to actually talk about Josh back half of the show about, he's one of our sponsors, and with WeatherTech General Contracting, we're going to get more to know him a little bit more and ask him about his business and kind of what he does. But as a parent, Josh, if you want to just weigh in, and now obviously, you would never bring a kid to something like this, but what does that make you think? Again, we don't know these people. Like, I want to be a little careful to cast judgment, but I think there's some judgment worth being cast here if you're a parent bringing your kid to something like this. And then not just in Plano, but you see that across the country where these little shows are happening. Like, what is, like, how could you possibly do that as a parent? It makes no sense.
Well, you can't possibly understand what those parents are thinking by doing that. It's incredibly unhealthy for not just a child but everybody there, and it's scary. Um, and if anything, everybody needs to go out and vote because that's the only way that this will change. And it's definitely something to be concerned about and worrisome about.
As a parent, do you what do you try to do to make sure? And remind me, where do your kids go? Are you in public school or private school?
Well, I have a 2-year-old.
Oh, so you're not okay. So that's right. See, me too. I have a 2-year-old and an 8-week-old. So I don't have to worry about it too much yet. But like, what are some things? And Shelby, you can speak to this too, of course, with your kids. Like, what are you guys doing or preparing to do? In our case, Josh, to make sure that we, know what's going into our kids' minds and what they're being exposed to. Not to be like a helicopter parent, but just to like help make good decisions and be able to like. I want my kids to be able to navigate the crap that they're going to see, and they're going to be able to, because it's just happened. But I think that's a big part of this. It's like you're exposing stuff to a mind that's not ready to understand what they're seeing.
Yeah.
And so, like Shelby and Josh, what are you guys preparing to do or doing to make sure you know what's happening in your kids' lives and their schools, where they're going, etc.?
Nathan, while they're talking, I want to pop up something I just found also, and it's about Texas, and it's about the drag shows for school-age children. So you guys go ahead and talk, but I did want to pop this up there.
Okay. Well, it's a good question. I have 3 school-age children, and I have vacillated in the past between sheltering and call it preempting, and I've erred on the side of preemption. So I have spoken to my daughters from a very early age about the kind of stuff they're likely to be exposed to, the kind of stuff they're likely to hear from their friends. And I'm just drawing from my own experience as a child. My friends had the talk with me before my parents ever got around to it. So I fully anticipate that the same is going to happen probably even earlier with my girls. So I try to walk them through what's going on in the culture, what they may be confronted with, and challenge them to think in the home environment what that means to them and kind of help inoculate them against that. So, because if their first exposure, no pun intended, actually probably not even a pun, if their first exposure to this kind of stuff is and I hope this never happens in Plano ISD, but the kids are invited into drag queen story time at a library, and nobody's ever prepped them for that before. Nobody's ever told them this kind of stuff was happening or what it means to them. Then they're just going to believe whatever they're told by the people who invited the drag queens there for story time to begin with, and that's not good.
Shelby, I think that's a great point, that they're not prepped. They're not they're not prepared for something like this happening. And I think that's why we wanted to do this show, is to let the parents know that it's coming around. And so you might want to share some information with your kids and let them know how you would like for them to respond if they ever get put in that situation.
Yep. And I'm looking at some of this text here saying, after all, we don't see Slayton asking for kids to be banned from Hooters. That's exactly the kind of false framing that's the problem here. So I'm not aware of any Hooters or R-rated movie, and people have tried to equate drag queens with cheerleaders as well. I'm not aware of a football game where they pass out sex toys, or a Hooters for that matter,
or where they give. It says here, if you look, some kids in attendance tip the drag performers with dollar bills.
Yeah, the parents or whoever was the responsible adult for that little girl gave her money to go tip the drag queen, like they were in a strip club. So there are certain environments in which children just are not allowed, and this is the reason why.
Well, let me interject there too, because if that parent wants to do that with their kid, that's their right. Agree, disagree, whatever. But if you have kids they're not with their parents and they see one kid doing it, they don't know if that's appropriate or inappropriate behavior. So
but I wouldn't even go that far, because like if that's with that argument, Lyndon, then parents should be able to bring their kids to a strip club, and that's
Exactly.
that's not allowed. Like,
Yeah, I disagree that that's the parent's right, because there are all sorts of things that I, as a parent, am not allowed to do with my daughters, and for very good reason.
Now, yeah, I think if the point you're trying to make is like, if you, if I guess if you as a parent don't think it's a big deal, that's fine. But there, to Shelby's point, like, there comes you protect the rights of adults to do stupid things or things that we disagree with, whatever, that's fine. But there are limits. I mean, it's just funny how everybody wants to protect kids, and it seems like the line between being a child and adult is shrinking drastically. Like now, I mean, and this, we could talk for the next 2 hours on topics, but like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I go, it will be long before there will be somebody trying to make a case for pedophilia, and that has happened, and it continues to happen. It's happened a lot, and it's the natural progression. Like it has to occur if you're going to remove the moral landscape. If you're gonna, again, I'm just going to use the generic term, like take God out of school, and I know that means so much different things, but if you're going to remove an authoritative morality where there's no absolute truth, then there's no logical conclusion but to assume that everything that enters my heart that makes me happy is all of a sudden okay to do. No matter the consequences, the destruction that it brings to anybody else, myself. And that's another thing. Like, people, well, it's not hurting anybody. Well, people never stop to think, like, is it hurting the person that's doing it? Right? Like, no, does anybody come and follow up and say, like, if I participate in something sexually depraved, is it hurting me? Well, that's a great question. And that's really been the argument here for so many people is, well, like, it used to be, well, it's consensual. It's fine. Well, it's okay. All right. Well, now it's not consensual because I don't believe these parents signed a permission slip to take their kids on a drag queen field trip, which again didn't happen. That's not the scenario in Plano, but it's happening. And so, it's no shock, really. None of this surprises me, honestly, because it's the natural progression that is going to take place when you have no moral authority left.
Here's another article. If you look down here, Brian Slayton, state rep for Texas, he's proposing a bill banning drag shows where minors are present. So I think that would kind of cover what happened in Plano.
And to the defense of the drag show community, I don't know if that's a community or not, but anybody, there have been a lot of people that go to those shows and are participating in those shows that have come out and said, this is no place for kids, and they've been appalled by having children there. So I will say, just in fairness of everybody, again, holding people's rights to do things that I may not agree with, it's not like this is 100% across the board. Anybody in this community who participates in this is in agreement that kids should be present. In fact, probably, I imagine that a lot of them are. Most of them are.
Mm-hmm. I do want to
happening, and it's still being pushed because when you can control children, well, now that's the end. That's it. That's everything.
I do want to shift framing for this a little bit to make people think, because even the Dallas Morning News article and a lot of people I've seen have tried to say that opposition to this is just bigotry. It's homophobic bigotry. Right. So first, just as an aside, it's very intelligent framing by using the word phobic to normalize whatever you want. Because if I am branded as being phobic, I am therefore afraid, and I want to prove I'm not afraid, which is just a complete false framing. But let's say that this event and I guarantee you a lot of people who know it's wrong to have kids there are just not speaking up because they don't want to be branded a bigot. So let's shift the framing a little bit. Let's say it wasn't drag queens, it was scantily clad women, not even like naked at a strip club, but let's say they had pasties and a thong, and they were surrounded by leering men. Same lyrics, pee good, pee sweet, pee good enough to eat, F me all night long. Same lyrics. They're still passing around sex toys, and the kids were there. What do you think the community reaction would be then if nobody was worried about being branded a bigot?
The same exact thing.
Well, I think they'd be up in arms.
Yeah, they'd be
allowing a kid there. But here, they're relatively silent. because it's a drag show.
So you think you're saying you think there's more outrage that's not being expressed because of fear. But yeah. I think the outrage would be the same. It just would be how prevalent would it be?
No, I think if it were a woman surrounded by leering men, then there would be very vocal community outcry. I think the outcry that people feel is being suppressed because they are afraid of being branded a bigot. And even in the Dallas Morning News article, somebody is quoted as saying they think that the outcry that is there is just because of homophobic bigotry.
It has nothing to do with that. Like it's such a cop out, and it's like what you said. Like, I mean, you just saw that picture of that kid just being paraded around. That looks
at the beginning, you see the one giving the tip right there.
Yeah.
So here's the dichotomy here. I was just picturing, like, I give money to my son every Sunday to go put it in the little star, for kids worship before they go off to children's worship. And I'm just trying to imagine, like, the dichotomy of going from something like that, and then giving kids money to put a tip a dancer of any kind, whether it be drag show or the example that you gave. Like, it just doesn't equate to me. Like, and Josh, like you and I, Josh, our kids are younger. What do you does this scare you? Like, does this concern? Obviously, this story concerns you. I know that because I know you. But like, as your kids grow up and my kids grow up, like, what do you? And you said it. Vote is obviously a big thing. But what are you doing proactively to kind of monitor or prepare for maybe having some of these conversations?
Well, we try to protect her as much as possible. And some of the things that we've talked about doing in the future is, it looks like this is going to go into the schools at some point. We hope not, but you have to prepare for that. And preparing to send her to a private school where the morals line up with what we want versus what would be taught in a public setting that we have no control over. That's the biggest thing for us. Obviously, being with us, teaching her what's right and what's wrong as far as what we think, and preparing her mind for these types of situations so that she can make decisions, healthy decisions. Everything that we're seeing on the show that you're presenting to us, it's just unhealthy. It's unnatural and it's unhealthy. And it will not survive in society. It can't. But we're having to deal with it right now, and it's unfortunate.
And I think you use one of the common words that are thrown around, Shelby, that you talk about, and that's a great point, Josh. People are afraid of being called bigots or some sort of phobic or whatever, and you've lost it. People have lost the ability to have debate about anything really. But at the end of the day, it's not about how it's not about being fearful of something like that. I think if you got to the bottom of this, a lot of people that are against this type of stuff actually, have some empathy and sympathy for people that, maybe feel like they'll participate in stuff like this because they feel like, they're just looking for something and not being fulfilled. And I know a lot of people, that are in that world, don't believe that and think that they're, fulfilling what they want to do and doing what makes them happy. But the statistics, suicide rates, just livelihood does not reflect that. It doesn't reflect happiness. And so I think at the end of the day, what you have a lot more, not bigotry, but a lot more empathy under the guise of, but we still have to protect, because until we have some sort of moral basis to stand on, we can't defer to any type of moral high ground because that's all been eroded, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, all this entire matter bleeds over into the transgender push. And as I have said for years now, all of God's children deserve our love and respect. But people with gender dysphoria, which the people who actually suffer from gender dysphoria are vanishingly low, like 1 in 30,000 to 1 in 100,000, minute. But the people who do genuinely suffer from it need our help, not our indulgence. And I think, and I've said this recently on Facebook, but I'm saying it increasingly lately. I think 90% of all of our problems as a society would evaporate if we treated one another first as fellow children of God and everything else second. Like, that doesn't mean you have to agree with everybody, or you have to accept some notion that all ideas are equally valid. But if I have a mortally fatal disagreement with you, if I look at you first as a child of God, then there's a much greater chance that we will resolve those differences peacefully.
Well, I agree completely. Let's do this. We got about 5 minutes before our break, and one of the things that the last 15 minutes, I want to talk to Josh in a little more detail. But one of the things I want to touch on today was the November 8th is coming close, 2 weeks from today. What is on the ballot for Plano? What are some things to be aware of, not only on the local but national level? I know we've got some big propositions coming up. We're going to be talking to the couple, Rick and Marshall, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, that are running that program, the Future Forward program for the school district. And we're going to have them recap that next week, and then obviously put a big push for the 8th. But, Josh was talking about, hey, go out and vote. Make sure you know who you're voting for, what you're voting for. And that really is a big part of it. And so, on November 8th, what can Plano citizens expect? What are they going to see? And if, Lyndon, if you want to share that Ballotpedia website, I think it's really cool. That helps you kind of navigate your ballot. But if you want to talk about that for the next couple of minutes before we do our last break, Shelby.
Sure. In a nutshell, local elections will not be until next year. Local elections in Texas are generally in first Saturday in May, so springtime. The election for which early voting just started yesterday are for state and federal elections, by and large. So obviously, governor's race is at the top of the ballot. All of the congressional races, the U.S. House and the state House, because they're every 2 years, the midterm elections. And then we've got some state Senate races, as well as a lot of judge races, Supreme Court, district judges, et cetera. So they're peppered around. Plano residents, if you are in Plano ISD, will see a handful of ballot measures when you go to vote. So one is to exceed the voter approval rate for a tax increase. And then there are several bond measures. There's for technology bonds, stadium improvements. There's a I think it's $1.3 billion bond with a B for, where was this? This is school renovations and safety. It's 1.2 billion rounding up. And then there's 130 million for an event center. I am actually voting against all of these measures, not because I don't think they're all a good idea. I do not agree with the event center for various reasons. The real reason is Robin Hood, otherwise known as recapture. And I have 3 children in Plano ISD who would benefit if this bond measure, some of these bond measures passed. But if we are ever to fix Robin Hood, and $214 million of our taxpayer money is going out of the school district this year because of Robin Hood.
Explain that real quick for people.
Yeah. Basically, since we are a property-rich school district, we have to take roughly a third of all the school's property taxes and just give it to the state to redistribute to other school districts, including La Jolla ISD, which is a property poor district, hence Robin Hood, robbing from the rich and giving to the poor, that built I think it was a $20 million water park with Robin Hood money, and then wanted more money to operate it. So this is where your tax dollars are going, not even in Plano ISD. So long story short, I'm voting against these bond measures because they're propping up Robin Hood. If it weren't for Robin Hood, we wouldn't even need these bond measures. We would be getting the money that we need, but they're taking it from us anyway.
But the Robin Hood, is that not
Shelby, real quick, when money is taken out of the school district, is it accounted for? I mean, can the citizens, can the people of Plano see where that money's going and who's using it and how?
You can follow the trail. It's not very easy to follow,
Right.
but yes, you can see who's getting the money and who's having the money taken away. But passing these bond packages adds additional tax to the taxpayers of Plano to make up for the taxes that are already being taken away from us and given to other school districts, which is why I'm voting against these, because there needs to be enough pain for this to really change. And I'm going to be incurring the pain because I have kids here, but it's got to change.
What's
where
to
is that
prevent
coming
what's to
from?
prevent Robin Hood? What's to prevent
Yeah.
Robin Hood from taking any of the new money that could be allocated if the bonds pass?
Just because they're bond money. Bonds are they're okay. A little. I don't know if we have time for this segment, but as quick as I can. Tax rate is made up of two components. There's the maintenance and operations portion. Then there's the interest and sinking, which just means debt. So the more debt you pile up, that doesn't go to Robin Hood. That just means we, the people of Plano, are uniquely on the hook for that, or Plano ISD. And so that's what's basically subsidizing Robin Hood. We don't have the money for everything we want to do because it's being taken through Robin Hood. So we're going to offset that with bonds to pay even more taxes and alleviate the pain such that the root problems never going to get taken care of. So I'm incurring voluntary pain to fix the bigger issue.
Where does who controls? Is Robin Hood at a state level?
Yeah, Robin Hood is the state law, basically. It's called recapture. It's the school financing mechanism, but that's governed by the state legislature. And so it's the state legislature who needs to hear from the school district administrators and school board members and the parents saying, no, enough is enough. Fix this.
Interesting.
And every session, some people talk loud about repealing Robin Hood, and it never happens.
Well, yeah, that sounds like we could have you on and talk about that as a whole other show. But Shelby, thank you so much for coming on, guys. If this is important to you, I know a lot of our listeners it is. Please comment, please share. I'd love to have we could probably continue this conversation as we're continuing to look out for things like this happening in our city and across the state of Texas. So we'll take our last break. When we get back, we're going to finish up the show with Josh here, talk about WeatherTech General Contracting, get to know him a little bit as one of our great sponsors. Guys, stick around. We'll finish up when we get right back.
Tired of that north of the border seasoning? Thinking there's got to be more than just salt and pepper to flavor your steak? Your brother-in-law yapping that he's the grill master? Here's your solution. Goodness Steak Seasoning. It's a blend of 9 unique herbs and spices that'll have your mouth saying, goodness. What was once just for steak night for the family is now being enjoyed by thousands of families across the USA. Grab a bottle or two today at Ham's Meat Market off the square in McKinney, Profound Foods in Fairview, and at bringthetasty.com.
All righty, welcome back, guys. We are going to wrap up the show here with Josh Small, with WeatherTech General Contracting, one of our title sponsors, and super excited to have you on the show. Now, Josh, you and I have known each other for a long time.
30 years.
Grew up at church together. Yeah, I think. What are you 99, 98? When did you graduate?
96.
Oh, dang. Oh, man, you're way old. I didn't realize how. Okay, I was after that. So, yeah. Anyway, we grew up together. So you're older than your brother. You're older than your brother, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old is Jeremy? How old is Jeremy?
He will be 43 in November.
And how old are you?
44.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like 41, so that's good.
There you go. Thank you.
But yeah, we grew up together and went to a couple of retreats together at church, and then I think you and I did some work. You were, I guess, landscaping company for a while. We did some work together. I will never forget that one job that we did. I know you already where we had to. I don't know. We were unprepared for the gravity of this particular job, I think. And we were, what was it like, cutting sod or something? Or we were tilling up something, and we ended up loading like 12 trash bags full of dirt, which you should never put dirt in a trash bag because it's so daggum heavy that it takes like 4 people to lift it, and there was 2 of us. I think we just laughed about it. It was pretty fun. But
we did it though.
We did. We sure as heck did it. So tell me about what you've been up to. How did you get into this business? Tell us about WeatherTech General Contracting. And you guys service, all over North Texas. Obviously, Plano, a big part of that. Talk about how you got started there.
Yeah, so I always dabbled in a little bit of construction, landscaping, things like that. When I got out of college, I knew ultimately it was something that I wanted to do long term. Just didn't have the means or the experience to do it. But once I left corporate America, I bit the bullet. I did it. And so no looking back. This was what I was going to do no matter what. And it's turned out pretty good. So we have an office in San Antonio. We have an office in Sunnyvale. We work all over Texas, mainly Tyler, San Antonio, and DFW. We have a roofing division. We have a remodeling division. We have a commercial division. And we work with a lot of property managers, a lot of multifamily properties, things like that. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, and we're busy. And we've been busy for the last 14 years. It hasn't slowed down. Knock on wood. Hopefully this economy doesn't slow us down next year. But we enjoy what we do. We love our customers. Everything we do is word of mouth. This is the advertising that we do is on the difference. We don't advertise anywhere else, except for this first year. I dabbled into some schools, but that's about it. So everything we've done is word of mouth. We really push for referrals. And that all hinges on doing a good job and making sure the customer's happy. So that's what we do. It's a lot of fun. We enjoy what we do, and we love helping people out.
What do you feel like? Because there's so many. I mean, golly, there's so many contractors. There's like so many roofing companies. Every time there's one piece of hail falls from the sky, like cockroaches, roofing companies show up. What have you done to stand out to make a difference in all those different contracting areas, whether it be roofing or remodel or whatever?
So I noticed early on when all I did was roofing is that we have to be able to do more. We have to, whenever there's a storm, there are more things that get damaged other than your roof. A roofer is going to go fix your roof and leave. And I just saw that as leaving money on the table, leaving work unfinished. And so we would make sure that we would cover everything. We could cover everything. We'd be able to cover everything from patio covers to pools to fences to gutters to windows, you name it. And that's how we expanded and made ourselves different from the average roofing company out there that just wants to knock on a door, tell them you're going to cover your deductible and do your roof and leave when all this other stuff needs to be done. And you're left, holding a bag, trying to be a GC yourself. So it's been beneficial to us. It's been beneficial to our clients. They appreciate the stuff that we do. We're not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am kind of company where we just come in, do the roof and leave. We try to do as much as possible. We are thorough in everything that we do, from our reports to the work, how detailed it is. And one of the biggest things that we do is we don't collect the money until we're finished or until the customer is happy. And so that's real big. And that puts a lot of pressure on us to make sure everything is done correctly. The customer is absolutely happy in the work that we've done so that we can get paid and we get referrals that way. And that's how we do things.
Well, that's one of the things that, I think we've talked about on this show, not on this show, well, even on this show, but specifically on the difference for a long time. It's just, making the difference, right? Doing that little thing extra. I talked about that in the networking group that I'm a part of, that Tim and I are part of. It just separates you from the competition. And it really is the little things. I know that's so cliche, but it is the little things that make all the difference. And going the extra mile, realizing that how would you want to be treated? And, just knowing you as a person, Josh, I mean, you're one of the most genuine people that I've ever met, just an all around good guy. And I say that, as a friend, but also anybody that's looking to do business with you, they're definitely not going to be sorry. And so, as we finish up here, and again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for jumping in the first half of the show with us today.
You bet.
And just commenting on some pretty important topics. But what are some, if people want to get in contact with you, got your information scrolling across the bottom here, email or phone, the best way to do that generally?
Yeah, you can go to our website. Our phone number's on our website right there, 877-682-2556. Somebody will answer the phone and can help you out with questions or projects or anything that you need. That's the best way to get a hold of us. We work 24/7. So if there's a problem at your house and you have a leak or have some type of disaster, call us. Doesn't matter what time it is. We will help you and work with you to get whatever that is accomplished, completed.
And it's interesting because we're in a job market where there's a lot of jobs available, but for a lot of reasons we don't have time to discuss, people are having trouble finding people to fill those. Are you guys looking for anybody? Like anybody's looking for work? Are y'all pretty staffed up at this point? Which, if you are, that's a great thing. Just curious for anybody that might be in that field.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to have the same guys for 10 years.
Oh,
I
that's awesome.
haven't had any turnover.
That's a testament to you right there. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
So I've been lucky, and keeping the same guys around is important, and making sure they're happy. And I've done a good job at that. And they stick around. They're always here. We've never had any problems. And so I'm grateful for that. And it all goes back to how we treat everybody, even to our clients, to the people that work for me. We try to treat them like we want to be treated. And it's paid us back hugely.
That's amazing. And it really, at the end of the day, it's just about doing the right thing for people.
Yeah.
In my industry in financial services, with what we try to do with the difference, like when you stand out by doing things that other people won't do, and just spending a little extra time, taking that extra, whether it be thanking somebody for their business or just obviously doing the job well. And you'd be amazed. I don't care what business you're in. When you go the extra mile, it means the world to people, and it really does. Because there's a decent amount of good companies out there, but there's so many more that are just trash, quite honestly.
Sure.
So, and it's just good that you guys are standing out. We thank you so much for your sponsorship of the difference. It means a huge deal to us. We're excited to have you on, and now that I'm seeing you, we need to go grab lunch or coffee at some point.
Let's do it, Nathan.
The last time we had lunch, I think, was in Rockwall at that Zapata's or something like that. Maybe you remember that? That was like a long time ago. Somewhere in Rockwall. It was many years ago, but we'll have to.
Fatted Calf.
Was that it? Yes, Fatted Calf. That's what it was.
No longer is the Fatted Calf, but yes, that's where we went for breakfast.
That's right. It was really good. I remember that. So we'll get together soon, catch up. So, well, man, thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks for chiming in early on. Thanks to Shelby Williams for just helping us tackle a very difficult conversation. And guys, make sure you're diligent at discerning what's out there, what's coming into your kids' minds, what's around. Right? Always, obviously we want to respect differences of opinion, but we also want to protect kids. And so you can do all those things at once, but you've got to know what's out there. And the biggest thing that you can do to make sure that your voice is heard is exactly what Josh said earlier on, is to vote. To know what you're voting for, know who you're voting for, show up to the polls, make your voice heard. That is one of the great privileges that we have in our society and in our community. So that's our time, guys. Thank you so much for joining the Community Difference. Stick around for next week's show. It's going to be a fantastic one. You guys have a great week. You can early vote, but I've decided, man, I want to vote on the day of. So make sure. I'm not afraid of the lines. I think we've got a people that have clawed and fought and died to be able to vote, and I'm not afraid of a little inconvenience to make sure that my voice is heard. So I encourage you guys to do the same. Have a blessed week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning into The Community Difference. If you enjoyed the show, take something you learned and apply it in your community or your business in order to make the difference for someone else. Remember, the smallest change begins with a single action, but a single action can make all the difference. A special thank you to today's amazing guests. Also, if you'd like to be on the show to share your unique story and how it made the difference in your community, please contact Lendon Wilson at lendonw@thedifferenceradio.com. Until next time, this has been The Community Difference in Plano, Texas, hosted by Nathan Smith.